Hi, welcome to a teacher workshop where I'm going to show you how you can create a class for testing. The goal is going to be to create a class where the students will only use tests and they're not going to see any other practice material. So how are we going to do that? We're going to first create a test, and then we're going to set up the class settings that will only allow testing, and then we're also going to disable the forum. And this is because usually the forum is used to ask questions about practice material, and probably you're not going to have any students asking questions before the tests via Sowiso if they're only using Sowiso for testing. So let's get started. When you log in, go to the Teacher tab, and then in the upper right, choose Manage, and then New Class. I'm going to call this class Exams 2024-2025, and the end date is going to be in 2025 in July. Here's my new class. I'm immediately added to it, and you can of course add any other users, for example your colleagues, if they're helping you create the exams. The first thing we're going to do to create these tests is add some course material. Now in this situation, I'm going to use the pre-made Sowiso course material, but of course you can create your own material through authoring, but that's another story. We have other resources for you if you're creating material from scratch. In this case, I will just use our basic math course and add it here. And don't worry, your students are not going to be able to see this later on when I set up the class settings. Right now, if they logged in, they would see this material on the home page. We're going to go to Test here and create a new test. I'm going to use the source of the course material, so that's what I just added previously. And then in the next setting, I'm going to be able to select some exercises. And when you're creating a test, there's really a lot of options, and we have a lot of information also on the Help Center, but I will go through some of the most important ones. On the right side here, you can use sections to organize your exercises, or just put all of them in one section. I usually recommend using sections because you can then additionally filter out exercises from there, or you can randomize the order of exercises, and then later on you can also show results per section. So here I will add a couple of sections, and I'll show you how you can switch between them. So if you select this little circle, that means that this section is now selected. So if I start adding exercises from here, they're going to be filled in here. On the left side where our course material is, you can easily open everything up by clicking on this little plus here. You can open everything up to the exercise level. So here I can just preview an exercise and then decide to add it. And you see it's added to the selected section. Choose your exercises and just take your time to create a test, however you want to create it. So I'll just add some exercises here so we have something to work with. There we go. And in this last section, because it's kind of big, I'm going to filter out and say I only want 2 exercises from there. As with any other test, you can assign points, of course. So I can say this is 4 points. And then if you ever forget which exercise this was, you can just open this up here and see another preview. Additionally, you can also show checks. And you see now that I have this another option here, which is allow checks. So that means that you can let the students check the answer before they submit the whole test. This is something you might want to do if you're having open-ended questions, if the test is significantly difficult, or for whatever reason you can do this. And you can choose which exercises can be checked. And then later on, you're going to be able to choose also how many checks all of these exercises get. So right now I will hide the checks because I'm not going to use them. In the next step, we're going to choose the language. And here I just always say, select any language that you assume your students are going to use. And also if you created your own exercises, then just make sure that whichever language you use there, it needs to be enabled here as well. Sometimes if the students have language settings to Dutch and you disable Dutch here, then they're not going to be able to see the exercises in a test. So if you want to be safe, leave everything enabled. Then we go to the date and time, and here we're going to choose when is the test going to be open. So if this is an end of the year exam, probably we want to be a little bit more strict with that. we might know that the tests are going to take place in October. So we can say on the 1st of October, the test is going to start, and it's going to be open from, I don't know, 3 p.m. until 3:40. So this is going to be the time when they can only start the test. This is not going to be the actual duration of the test. There's also a deadline option. So you can say that there is one hard deadline when all of the tests are going to be submitted, no matter when they were actually started. In the next tab, we're going to choose a name for the test. So I'm going to call it Exam 2024-2025. And you can add some more information here, or you can also add information for after the test. Then we go into settings. So we're going to make this test available. And we're going to make the maximum number of attempts be 1, because we're imagining that this is some kind of summative test at the end of the year. And here we're going to choose the duration. So I can say that the test is going to take 120 minutes. Also, I'm sometimes saying that this is a test, sometimes I'm saying it's an exam. It is completely up to you how you call this. It is just called test on the platform, but usually teachers call it also an exam if it's at the end of the year, so it's up to you. You can also enforce a delay between attempts, and this is done if, for example, students can have multiple attempts and sometimes they refresh the exam and they want to get better questions next time. So just to prevent them from doing this, then you can give them a bit of a delay, like they can do it after 15 minutes or 15 hours or days even, so you can choose the settings here. Under results, you can decide if you want the results to be released right away, or do you want to check them first. So probably if it's like a summative test, then you would want to choose do not release. Here we can see review results by section. So right now this is enabled, but of course they're not going to see the results per section because we stopped the results. But once you release the results, if you choose release everything, then they will also get results by section. You can choose to show points per section during the tests. Choose the minimum passing grade. And this is not going to have any consequences for the students, only that their results are going to be shown in red or in green, depending if they're below or above this minimum score. It's also possible to transform the final test score into a grade. So you can use this linear transformation, or you can use the other option, which is the constant value. So just adding a grade here and then choosing the percentages. Underneath, we have some tool settings. So here you can choose between 2 practice modes, either a test mode or a practice mode, and there you can let them check the questions before they submit the test. So right now we didn't choose that, we're going to stay in test mode. You can let your students upload files during the tests. So most of the time students can't use phones, but if they could use phones, they could take a photo and then upload it into the test. So if you want to see the worked out solutions, you can enable that here. You can allow students to use an on-screen calculator, and you can choose between these two, basic calculator or scientific calculator. And you can allow them to add a note to each question, and that's going to be just a small written note that's typed out, not actually handwritten. And students can also use text-to-speech here. From security, we have a couple of options. If this is really summative testing, you can then choose to have some more restrictions. So maybe you can set up the password protection so that when all of the students are in the classroom, only then you share a password and they can put it in the test, and then the test is open. So that way you are protecting the test from being done from somebody from outside of the classroom. You can also have the IP range restrictions, so you need to put the IP addresses that are accepted. Additionally, full screen mode is also a nice one if you're testing in person, but be ready that sometimes there are some challenges with this mode, so that if the students have a screensaver or some other thing on their computer, the test might be submitted because the screensaver is considered as leaving the screen. And lastly, Sowiso also supports Safe Exam Browser. This is another tool that you need to install on the computers, and then the students only log in via one browser and they can't just click anywhere they want. They can only access Sowiso or any other websites you allow. I'll save the settings for now. And now we have our test. This test is going to be available in October, but I will change those settings now just so we have something to show you on the homepage later. Okay, now we're going to set up the class settings. We're going to do that here under settings, and then we're going to choose class mode. And here we will switch to testing only. And I'll show you what that does. So if I go back to homepage, you see that the practice material that I initially added to this class is now gone, and now I only see my tests. So the test was previously here on the right side, now it moved on the center. So when the students log into this class, they know this is the class only for testing. They can only start the tests and not do anything else. The last thing we're going to do is disable the forum. We're going to do that under Teacher, in Settings, and then under Forum. The default setting is that the forum is going to be open, but we're going to choose the first one, Disable the forum. And for us, nothing's going to change, so I'll still have the forum tab, but for the students, it's going to look different. Now I'm impersonating a student account, and you can see here that I only have the home button, the report, and there is no forum available, so I can't post any messages here. I can only start my tests. It's important to note that the forum will show if any other of the classes that the student is a part of do have the forum enabled. So then they could still go there and post for the other class. Your class for taking exams is now completely ready and you can start inviting students. And to do that, you can go to Teacher and then to Settings and Access Code. Here I don't have any access codes right now, so I'm going to generate a new one. And I have these two options. So I can use the first one if I want to invite students to join via cloud. So that's just normal, how you would Google the cloud.sowiso.nl and then join. Or you can use the second one if you have an LTI integration or if you have a SurfConnect integration. So it's up to you to choose, and of course it's always best to ask your students to log in before the actual exam because usually they only have a limited amount of time when they need to log in. So ideally they would create these accounts before they come to do the tests. And that's it. With that, you're completely ready to have your class and to invite your students. Good luck!